Hey, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to Saigon, Vietnam. It's a city with a rich history and even richer food, and it's very livable. I love it here. And here are my top picks of some things you can do when you come to this marvellous city, which is powered by coffee and ruled by the moped. One of the most pivotal locations in the city, and more exciting if you're a fan of 1960s architecture, is the Independence Palace, also known as Reunification Convention Hall. It was the home and workplace of the President of the Republic of South Vietnam and the site of the fall of Saigon in 1975, which ended the Vietnam War when a North Vietnamese army tank crashed through its gates. The palace is an outstanding example of retro-modern design, and each room has been restored to its heyday during the war, detailing how they would have appeared during that time period. There's almost an Austin Powers feel to the interior. You get to see how the war was planned, monitored, and how the palace staff were fed and housed. All fascinating stuff. For me, the most interesting parts are the basement with its telecommunications centre, war room and warren of tunnels, and the roof where the lone helicopter sits to commemorate the evacuation when the North Vietnamese army tore down the gates. The War Remnants Museum is probably my favourite museum in South Vietnam. It's also the one that evokes a lot of emotion. It pulls no punches when it comes to documenting the history and the human consequence of war. Outside in the entrance yard are examples of vehicles and equipment used during the Vietnamese War, including a Huey helicopter and a Patton tank. Inside there are 3 floors of incredible war artefacts and history relating to the French colonisation, Vietnamese attempts at democratic independence, and the eventual Vietnam War. This is hard-hitting, but it's so educational. Be aware there are photographs that will be upsetting, especially concerning Agent Orange and the biological warfare. But it's all part of the point. Don't be afraid to find a quiet area on one of the stairwells for a little processing time when you finish the tour. I certainly did. This is the city's biggest authentic market. It serves both local Vietnamese and those of us living in Airbnbs, as there's a daily wet market, fresh fruit and vegetables, and a massive row of coffee sellers. But it's also a good place for a one-stop shop for souvenirs. There's knickknacks, t-shirts, clothes, as well as traditional handicrafts. Literally anything you want, they're likely to have here somewhere. The street food here is outstanding, and the people watching is great, even if you don't buy anything. Do feel free to haggle to get the best price for purchases. Paying 3/4 of the initial price is usually a good guide. Bưu Ven Walking Street is just one long street, housing many of the larger clubs, bars and tourist restaurants, and by day can be a modest affair. But at night the street transforms into one huge club, loud musics, lights flashing, people, cars and bikes everywhere. It's gloriously chaotic and great if you like your happy hours and cheap beer, but do watch your wallet and phone here. In contrast, Nguyen Hugh Street is a wide boulevard located in the very attractive and luxurious downtown area of District 1, right by the Bitexco Financial Tower. It's the largest and widest road in the city, and at a weekend becomes fully pedestrianised. There are a number of sculptures dotted around the walk, and the shops and restaurants feel, expensive. You can find a fountain and lily ponds, and the People's Committee building at the top. It's great for a gentle stroll, stopping off for a coffee or an ice cream along the way. And while we're in this area, the sky deck is a 360-degree glass-enclosed observation deck on the 49th floor of the Bitexco Financial Tower, with scenic views over the city and countryside beyond. You can really see how the districts are organised and how far the suburbs actually sprawl, and the binoculars here are free to use too. You can see a distinct difference between the low-rise housing to the south and the high-rises to the north. There's also an exhibition on yo-yai, traditional Vietnamese dress through the ages. It's definitely worth the $7 entrance. Conveniently situated next door to one another, the Saigon Central Post Office and the Notre Dame Cathedral of Saigon are two of the most popular attractions. Built in the late 1800s, the Central Post Office is considered the oldest in Vietnam and has elements of Gothic, Renaissance and French colonial design. Great architecture aside, it has interesting information on its past, in particular the old colonial-style telephone booths, and of course there are souvenirs and postcards. This is a working post office, so houses a useful office centre with some phones and fax lines. Expect to see people going about their post office-y type business here. Directly opposite the post office, and as of autumn 2022, the cathedral is undergoing extensive restoration works, so it's impossible to gain entry as a tourist. But I'll share a few snaps from previous visits. It was built in a similar time to the post office, so they do share characteristics. And it's darn impressive. You could almost feel like you're in Paris. And as we're talking places of worship, another worth visiting is the National Buddhist Monument, with its towering 13-storey pagoda and its distinctive yellow and red colour scheme. The stupa represents the union of 13 Buddhist organisations, societies and branches participating in the protest against religious inequality in 1963. It's a peaceful and reflective space. Camden Church, or Church of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, is worth a look due to its bright pink tone and its Gothic architectural style. It's only open internally during hours of service, and you will be expected to dress formally to enter. Fancy understanding what it was like to be part of the Viet Cong? Well, this trip is a must. And it's about a 2-hour drive outside of Ho Chi Minh City, but totally worth it. The tunnels are an immense network of connecting passageways located in the Chu Chi district and are part of a much larger system of tunnels that underlie much of the country. They were the location of several military campaigns during the Vietnam War and were the Viet Cong's base of operations for particular offensives. The tunnels were used as hiding spots during combat, as well as serving as communication and supply routes, hospitals, food and weapons caches, and living quarters for numerous North Vietnamese fighters. The ingenuity behind this network is beyond belief. The tunnel systems were of great importance to the Viet Cong in their resistance to American forces. It's the guides here who are the stars. They're knowledgeable and humorous, and they really make this trip. Not to be confused with the History Museum of Ho Chi Minh City, which is more about ancient Vietnamese history. This grand old building of a museum solely focuses on the history and development of the city itself. It has separate halls focusing on specific themes, and I particularly like the exhibit on food and drink, but then I am a foodie. The museum was not packed, but there were several wedding parties and Instagrammers taking official photos here, so you may have to tiptoe around the families, as their photo taking apparently takes priority. If you fancy a chill and a getaway from the near-death experiences of dodging scooters, there are numerous green spaces dotted around the city. One of my favourites is Tao Dan Park. It's ringed by food stalls and restaurants, so grab a banh mi and relax on a bench and watch the world go by, or even a nearby school practising a flash mob. It also has a modernist sculpture park shaded by trees, so handy to shelter under during a rain shower. Although set in the middle of a roundabout, Turtle Lake is not a natural lake, but a small pond with fishes, fountains, and some stark brutalist 1960s monuments, with a tower resembling a lotus. Sit on the benches and relax, watching the shoaling fishes. And finally, one thing that is unmissable is the food. Vietnam must have the most amount of street stalls and restaurants per square metre in the world, and everything is delicious.
So that's my pick of the bunch, most of which are all within walking distance of one another. So I'm shortly off to the Mekong Delta and then up to Hanoi. I'll be filming videos there, so keep your eye out for those. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!